podcast listeners. I'm TJ.
And I'm Julie.
And in episode 73 of the Pixar Post podcast, we're going to chat all about Inside Out 2, of course, diving into the box office bonanza that it is. We'll summarize 3 recent articles talking about Pixar's future and include our thoughts, and talk more about your trip to Pixar for the Inside Out 2 press event, what you saw, what you did, who you ran into, so on and so forth like that. We'll also have a brief note at the end, which is actually really cool, about vocal recording from Paul Walter Hauser as well as Lewis Black talking about payments, which is really cool. We'll touch on some other Skydance and Paramount merger news, which is just relevant with the whole John Lasseter, Brad Bird, and other folks being over there. And a touch on Monsters at Work, and we're going to talk about what we want to do with that for the future. But before we dive into all that, we have to start with some Pixar trivia. Are you ready?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I'm ready, but I did not prepare a question for you.
That's not a problem. You can't prepare for me. There's even going to be harder trivia coming in our next, whether it's a Hangout video or podcast. We're still trying to figure out how we want to do our Inside Out 2 full review, where we break down the characters, the animation, the score, all those kind of things. The story, I've got a ton to talk about. So those are going to be harder questions that while we were watching the movie and I had my notepad with me, I wrote down stuff in the background, like what is this? Or who was that? And I wrote down the trivia questions while we were watching it.
Oh, well, I actually saw an Easter egg in the back that I don't think you saw. And it's not a Pixar Easter egg either.
So when do you want to discuss that?
I don't know. Maybe while we talk about the movie. Or I could do it now.
Well, okay, we can talk about it in a minute. But first, your first question at the beginning of the movie. What team are the Foghorns?
Oh, man. And I told myself to, remember this, too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What team are the Foghorns playing? Now, Foghorns are Riley's hockey team. I'm buying you some time to think about it. So keep thinking. At the beginning of the movie, what team are the Foghorns playing? What are they called? Go.
I believe they're red.
That is not the answer.
I know. And I saw it too, and I was like, oh, remember this. And it's gone. Sorry.
The team they play are the Sea Lions.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Well, the Sea Lions is what it was. Now, the other piece that we were going to talk about in this episode, a big chunk of it, is the box office, as well as my end dollar amount, down to the final dollar that I'm going to predict. So a lot of it is going to be about the box office. So there are 5 Pixar films that have crossed $1 billion in revenue now, including Inside Out 2. So that leaves 4 remaining films. There's 5 total.
Okay.
4 remaining. Name those other 4.
Finding Dory.
Yes.
Incredibles 2.
Yes.
I'm trying to... Nemo?
That is incorrect.
Man, it's got to be more recent.
Well, what you need to think about are giant...
Toy Story 3.
Yes.
Oh, man. Not Cars.
Some of the lowest grossing films.
Yeah. But the highest merchandise sales.
Thank you very much.
I don't think it was WALL-E. I don't think it was MU. I don't think it wasn't Onward.
I'm shaking my head no at you.
I know, because Onward was right before when COVID was happening. It wasn't none of the COVID films.
What was right before COVID?
Why can't I think? Toy Story 4?
There you go.
Really?
Yeah. You thought
Okay.
Toy Story 3 was, but you were amazed that Toy Story 4 did?
Because you and I had been talking about Toy Story 4 in particular. Didn't we just talk about this? And people were like that it didn't gross enough or something. Or I thought I just read, maybe it was an article I read that people were like, no, Toy Story 4. Yeah, it was.
Were they thinking it didn't gross enough based on what it should have done?
Yeah, something like
right.
that. It was an article I read, so that's why that one threw me off.
Okay.
So I wasn't thinking.
But you got Toy Story 3, though, which is the first of their films to pass over the $1 billion, which in 2010 was a huge deal. Now, with ticket prices going up and all the premium seating and everything else, it raises the ticket price.
Yeah, the Friday ones go on Thursday.
Yeah, there is. We talked about it in our little reel that you videoed when we were standing outside the theater the first time we saw Inside Out on Thursday. And we said, why even say that movies come out on Friday now? It used to be like Thursday at midnight. We were just talking to our son about it that we went to the midnight.
Of Cars 3. Oh, 2? Oh, yeah, right.
Cars 2.
Cars 3. Leo was like 3.
Yeah, we didn't take him to the midnight showing when he was 3. But yeah, Cars 2, we went and saw the midnight showing on Thursday, well, technically Friday, once it crossed midnight. And we got to see it. And yeah, they just have them like all day on Thursday now. So it's like, why not just say that it comes out on Thursday?
Right.
Craziness. So do you want to share your Easter egg or do you want to hold it?
Okay. So yeah, I'll share it right now. So it's actually where the Pixar Ball is located.
Okay.
So I've seen the film 4.5 times. So I saw half of it. Well, I won't say half, like
30 minutes.
a third of it at the studio. But I've seen it 4 times since its theatrical release. And the 4th time I saw it, I found the Pixar Ball because, like you had mentioned it.
Yep.
But I also really looked more in that scene. It's like the parade of career possibilities for Riley.
Yes.
And there's a lot of board games there. There is a Figment board game.
Oh.
It's like imagination something, but Figment's on it. And I would love to know the story behind that because it's obviously a Disney reference, Epcot reference. Yeah. Since I'm like, born in 82, Figment was like my favorite. I love Figment.
Do you still love him though?
Not really, but...
Yeah. He's a super cute and cool character. They've been putting a lot of really cool merchandise and things. But yeah, the ride is getting a little stale.
Not only the ride, I never liked his voice. His voice needs to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I had Figment stuffed animals. Like, I loved Figment, like, as a kid. Yeah. But I saw that and I thought...
That's pretty cool.
I thought it was kind of cool. And I'm like, what else is there? What did I miss? Why can't I pause this?
Yeah, and we're going to have to wait. That's one of the things we're going to be talking about coming up here is about how many days this film is planned to be in theaters based on interviews that were prior to the film's release. And with its success, let's see if they extend the theatrical release at all. I'm curious about that.
Well, we need to go see it again.
Without a doubt. And sorry I keep clearing my throat. Right before we started recording, I swallowed water and I totally didn't swallow it correctly. And I've been coughing violently. I should do like an outtake video at the end of this, just because we were recording when I was coughing like nuts.
I'm surprised you didn't spray water all over this room.
No, it got down the hatch. It just didn't want to go down right. It had a big old bubble with it. I was trying to do it quickly so we could get going and it backfired. All right.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. So the box office itself is absolutely knocking it out of the park. So after 9 days of the film being open at that time, it was already the top grossing movie of the year, which is bonkers to think that it's a June release and 9 days in, it's made more money than any other film this year. It opened in the U.S. for the first weekend with $154 million, and now that's domestic total. And now the domestic total is $533 million estimated, which that's estimated because Box Office Mojo, where these numbers are coming from and kind of the lead place that everybody tracks it from, estimates the weekend numbers until they're finally reported. But it's already at $1.21 billion globally, including international totals. And again, that's estimated through this weekend, but the estimates are fairly accurate because a lot of times it's not like the old days where box offices had to report their numbers into a central location. With all the pre-sale tickets and people buying them online, there's more direct feeds to the data. So it's quick. Right. It's more quickly updated. It's now the 5th highest grossing animated film, being Frozen 2 is number 1, Super Mario Brothers number 2, Frozen the first one, number 3, Incredibles 2, number 4, and now Inside Out 2. So Inside Out 2 being at $1.21 billion already. Incredibles was at $1.24 billion. So it's super close to Incredibles 2. It's got a ways to go.
What's Frozen 2?
$1.45 billion. So now we got to go from 1.21 to 1.45. So that's a tough one. But from a domestic comparison, it's $60 million ahead of Super Mario Brothers at day 21 in the theater, which as of when we're recording this, Inside Out 2 has been in the theater for 21 days. So it's 60 million ahead of that pace. And that movie ended at 1.36 billion.
Okay.
So it's in there. Despicable Me 4. So we got to talk about this a little bit. It's estimated that at day 5, so Wednesday is when that one technically opens. So
Yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's done 122.6 million domestically. Now on day 5, Inside Out 2 had done 205 million.
Oh.
So, and it's funny. There's articles out there that are like, Despicable Me 4 trounces Inside Out at the theater. I'm like, yeah, because it's been out 3.5 weeks already, or 3 weeks. So, lame title to the article to try to get the clickbait
people want
stuff.
headlines. Yeah.
Yeah, but so it's already on track there. So EW, that's one of the articles that we're going to be summarizing summarizing more later in the podcast when we talk about the future of Pixar and looking at feature films as well as Disney Plus content. So in this one, Pete Docter said, I think the film Inside Out 2 is not coming on streaming until it's like 100 days later. So hopefully people are like, I got to go check it out. I got to go to the movies. Mm-hmm. So it makes me wonder, like I said, are they going to extend this? Because Super Mario Brothers, Frozen 2, all those films were out much longer in theaters than 100 days. Mm-hmm. But
100 days seems quick to me.
Well, not really. So one of the facts and figures that I looked at is that on average, 40 to 45%, sometimes up to 50% of a film's revenue, well, looking at Pixar films, I haven't looked at every, come in the first 7 days.
Oh.
So then it really starts to trail off. We're going to have numbers that talk about coming up between day 21, where Inside Out 2 is now, and day 100, how much money comes in for like Super Mario and all those other things, so we can predict where it will be.
Interesting.
So we're going to talk about that too. But yeah, almost 40%, like almost half is coming in the first week.
I mean, that makes sense, but 100 days seems, quick.
Yeah, that's what they did with Elemental. And then they were like, oh, because they thought it was going to not do great. Mm-hmm. And then it ended up having legs that just kept going. And a strong international pull on that one. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this one ends up. But let's talk about some other numbers here, too, if that's cool. Mm-hmm. So keep in mind, again, I already said it, but Frozen 2, highest grossing animated film of all time, $1.45 billion. Inside Out is $156 million ahead of Frozen 2's pace on day 21. So now looking at
IO2. Inside Out 2.
What did I say?
You just said Inside Out.
Oh, yeah, Inside Out 2. Yeah. Okay. Is $156 million ahead of where Frozen 2 was on day 21. So 156 million more. Now, that's because so much revenue for Frozen 2 was international.
Oh, well.
Especially China.
Yeah, and they just opened that whole land over there too.
Right. So they obviously loved that film. So the Asia Pacific region, that pulled a ton. So from an Inside Out 2 perspective, I don't have it predicted to have as much of an international pull. So it would have to make more up of that in domestic if that's the case. But it's showing that domestically it's ahead of the pace of Frozen, Incredibles 2, all those other films. So that's good. So what I ended up creating, I'll skip some of the other calculations that I have in here because they can get quite lengthy.
I know you and your calculations.
Well, so what I came up with is a system that I think can reasonably predict where a film will end up based on its first 7 days. So how I come up with it is that you have the factual numbers of what the 7-day total has come in at for the domestic box office. I'm just taking that piece. So you enter that in. then you have to predict a percentage of what you think that 7 days will be as a percent of the total domestic pull. So like I said, like 40% of the revenue comes within the first 7 days. You have to start looking at other films to be like, okay, what do I think this film has pulled in? Is it 40%? Is this 50% of the revenue in the first? So you have to predict that. Then the second piece that you have to predict is what percent of the revenue do you think is going to come from domestic versus international? And once you predict those two numbers, it'll extrapolate everything else and tell you, it'll calculate all the international and everything like that. So what I do then is I take the history of all Pixar films. I have the chart that says after the first 7 days how much each film has made, what's the domestic percentage that it's pulled, the international percentage. I know this is really getting in the weeds, but I take different cuts of that data and I compared it to come up with what percentages I was going to predict. So I looked at all Pixar films, then I looked at Pixar films in the last 10 years, then I looked at all Pixar films again, but taking out, and even the 10-year one, I took out the 2020 to 2022 releases because of COVID impact. And then I looked at just sequels. And so I came up with my numbers that I think this film is going to be 41% domestic pull and 59 for international. And I used the numbers mostly from the last 10 years, as well as the sequels only. And so my final number came out to 1,447,436,846.
So making it the top one.
No, 1.45.
What was this one?
It's Frozen 2.
Okay,
so
this is 1.43?
1.447.
447.
So hear me out. So that needs from today, it needs an additional 237 million to get there from Inside Out 2. Now you hear, oh, it's already at 1.2 million. It only needs 237 million to get there. That sounds easy, right?
Oh, no, it doesn't. That's a lot of money.
Right. So Japan, it opens in Japan on August 1st. Last film, it pulled around 30 million. So I'm going to just say it's going to be around there again. And then I think we've got 132 million that we'll get between days 21 and 100. So that leaves about 75 million that could either be made up in domestic, if I was under there, or from other international markets that's going to fill that in. So it's going to be tough, but I'm going to stick to my number. But what stinks about my predicted number the most is that if it's accurate, that would put it $6 million, that is it, shy of Frozen 2.
Oh, man.
But that's what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
Based on my predictions.
We have, like 80 days left to see?
Yeah, between 21 and 100 days. So just to give I said I think it's going to pull 132 million domestically between now and if it closes at 100 days. If they extend it, I can get even closer, I think, to my number. Mm-hmm. But Super Mario Brothers and Frozen 2 both made exactly like 129 million between days 21 and 100. Incredibles 2, 131 million. So it's a 130 million average. But then you see variances. The first Frozen, 245 million. Because that film came out of nowhere and took the world by storm.
It did. It really did.
So the word of mouth carried the garbage out of that. But Dory only did 82 million in those 80 days. So it's kind of all over the place, but I think it's going to do strong. And that is where my where my predictions come in. So again, I'll just to make it more simplified, and I'm sorry if this is super boring. Please tell me if you don't want to hear this kind of stuff because it's way too in the weeds with numbers. I can almost see your eyes glossing over, but I spent hours.
I know you did. You really did spend hours like calculating this and like looking at all this. And sometimes when you talk about the numbers, I'm like,
I know it's my jam.
I know it is. I just get lost.
Yeah. So
and meanwhile, I'm looking at you like like that scene in The Hangover where he's going to the casino and it's like all
the numbers.
Yeah. Or like Claire Danes.
Well,
like that GIF or GIF, however you say it.
It's GIF. I know it's supposed to be GIF, but come on now.
I
it's
know.
GIF.
I have to say GIF too.
It's not a giraffe. It's a giraffe. It starts with a G. So
Giraffe. I've never heard that before.
because I made it up. So yeah, my prediction, it will fall just shy of Frozen 2, strictly because it's not going to have as strong of an international pull, but it does have a little bit more inflation and premium seating and things like that. So when we see it again, I'm thinking we should probably see it in 3D because my sister saw it in 3D. And she said the belief system
Was cool.
like where she's like plucking the beliefs like guitar strings. She said that looked amazing when they were walking through them. And then like the hockey puck flying towards the camera.
And we haven't seen it in 3D yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we might have to do that.
And you were talking earlier before you got into the numbers about EW. And since our last podcast, it's been a little too long since our last podcast, but I don't think that, like we were mentioned, our site was cited on Entertainment Weekly, which was huge for us because all of a sudden our numbers like went up like
You're right.
astronomically, as well as we were featured on the Drew Barrymore talk show.
Yes.
Like our site was like actually on her
yeah, they had
show,
our logo.
our
like,
logo
on the screen.
and it was the article I wrote. It was like the snippet of the like the teenage girl team, like
Yeah.
the brain trust of the teenage girls,
The teenage
basically.
girls that they brought on as like a story
Riley's-
consultant.
Riley's crew.
Riley's crew to talk about, so they wanted to validate what they were saying and what they were thinking would resonate with teenagers.
But that's like the snippet they took from our site. But
Yeah.
that was like so cool. When you said it, I was like, wait a second, I think that happened like April, May.
You are right. We had a couple really cool mentions. So Discussing Film retweeted that post that you wrote as well.
Yeah.
And that got a couple 100,000 hits because of that. And then Drew Barrymore Show didn't get hits. The EW article did, but the
Yeah.
Drew Barrymore Show was just like, because it was such a quick, like, we're recapping the news of the week and things like that. So people weren't really reaching out and looking for that information. But the stuff that was online, they linked through to it.
Oh my gosh, the stuff that I did while at the studio, because we were able to share photos and reels and stuff. I couldn't believe how much traffic we were able to get, especially because I put nostalgia out there.
Yeah.
That one was huge for us.
So I think you were the first one to share anything about nostalgia, and that was because things were a little different when you were at the studio this time. This is like too perfect of a segue to talk about your visit to the studio, but I don't want to go there fully yet.
That's fine.
So just talk about this piece and how you shared nostalgia.
Oh, this is like the first time ever Pixar allowed us to share certain items with like on social media right away.
So typically when you go in there and they take you to the upstairs portion.
The upstairs of the Steve Jobs building, the first night that we get to see the footage, we kind of just have like a happy hour, like cocktail hour. We have like a little dinner.
Themed drinks and snacks.
Yeah, themed drinks and food to the film. And there's a whole bunch of concept art.
Like
maquettes, like I said, concept art, stuff that they like scrapped, everything. And it's just an art-filled hallway. There's so much stuff. And like normally we can never take pictures up there, ever. It's like put your phones away. This time I was shocked. I was like, I kept seeing people take some pictures. And so I went over to, our contacts and I was like, hey, is it okay? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, am I allowed to share this? And they're like, yes. And I shared it. I mean, I took so many pictures and video and I didn't share it until I got back to the hotel room. And I swear I was up until like 3 a.m. doing this, which is really like our 6 a.m. because of the time change. But yeah, and it just went crazy from that. Well, I mean, I literally, I've never turned Twitter back on, my notifications, Twitter and Instagram.
You did
I
have
like,
to turn them off. It was
I
annoying
turned it
for a
all
while.
off because it was making my phone die. It was making my watch die. I was like, enough. And it was like every second, millisecond.
It was going bonkers. I was in the office and it was just brrt all day. And I'm like, okay, take it easy.
I know when I was seeing the interactions go to the millions, it was that and I was
it's not interactions, was it? Was it?
It was views on on one of them. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
People definitely
We're so excited about this film.
Yes, without a doubt. So before we also get into the rest of kind of some of your insights that were there, I also want to talk real quick just that we saw the movie at the theater, obviously, and we saw it in a 4K laser projection. We saw it in a Super IMAX, which is a version, if you will, of an IMAX theater that's through the Imagine theaters. And it was actually really cool. So the 4K laser projection, I thought the whites were almost too silvery white. And I know that could have been the screen that they had, that it was because I know it has some of the silver in it. But yeah, the IMAX was amazing. If you guys have an IMAX or something it's a super mega screen, it was Atmos video and audio, and the audio was way more dramatic there. It was fantastic. Also, our first screening audience was fantastic. First movie that we've been to in a super long time that it was packed every time.
Yeah.
And
I will have to say, because I've seen it 4 times in the theater, all 4 were pretty packed.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been bringing people with you. You calling people.
I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, I called.
I'm like, I bought us tickets. Shows at 10.
I was calling my sister, nephews, nieces. I'm like, come on now, you owe it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, we've taken grandparents.
Yep, gotta go. Get in the car.
Yep.
So then the other thing is like I said, the 3D, we want to talk about that. But people in the theater, first time seeing a movie that was packed. Also, second time we saw it, it was a lot more younger teenagers, I would say, or probably 15, 16. They're yelling don't even say it, because I never want my voice recording saying it. It's so stupid.
It's the middle school lingo. Look it up on
lingo.
Reels.
Yeah.
On TikTok. It's all of that. As soon as a quiet moment would happen,
they'd yell it.
They'd
and then
yell
everybody
go. Yeah. But I will say the first viewing that we saw was probably the most magical.
The Thursday night.
Yes, because it not only was it packed, there was so many 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-something-year-olds who were just in no kids. I just love that because it's not a kid's film. It's just.
Well, we did go to the Thursday night show.
But we had our son was with us. And first off, Leo, have you ever heard him laugh that hard?
No, not in a theater. Maybe when we've tickled him.
I know, but I thought this movie like broke him for a second. Because
Bluefy and Pouchy.
Bluefy, Pouchy, and
Lance.
not Lance Slashblade. That he did laugh at that part too, but no, the part that he still cracks up is where it's like construction paper.
Oh yeah.
They ride on the.
He thinks it's absolutely the greatest thing.
It's hilarious.
And it is. I loved it too.
Yes, and when Joy talks to anxiety and anxiety's happy. And then, anger, I'm going to punt her in the dump.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, but he just laughs so hard at that. Mm-hmm. And when Riley turns happy, like the braces, oh my gosh.
I know. So good. Mm-hmm. So we'll save more of those talks for the full Inside Out 2 review. Again, apologies that it's taking so long. After 21 days, we should have already had it up. I hope people are still interested to hear it, so let us know. But right before we get to, and I'm like, oh God, where do we even throw this in there? But I wanted to talk about the tougher news that between when you were visiting the studio and ran into some people. And when the movie came out, there was that hard news of Pixar laying off approximately 14% of their staff, or 175 employees. Mm-hmm. And it just stings too much to hear about those layoffs right before this movie is like going bonkers in theaters. It stinks so bad, and you see the employees sharing their names in the credits, and they're being kind about it as far as sharing the success of it, and so glad people are enjoying it. But it's been tough. And there's been some things that have happened with Pixar over the last, couple of years that you're like, what is happening? Some of it we've got some news about that is determined or talked about in some of these Bloomberg Time and EW articles that we'll touch on that kind of answer some things. It's Daddy Disney. And but it just hurts when they're letting go of people that we know. It's not just these artists, but we're commiserating at a deeper level, and we're empathizing at a deeper level, because it's not just people that made the films that we see their art in art books. These are people we've talked to, whether it be on the podcast, in the studio,
personally,
on social media. Yeah, it's wild. And then there's other people that I'm not going to list them, at least the people that we're aware of. I certainly don't have a list of 175. But as we're going through social media and talking to other people, we've been kind of like, okay, oh my gosh, this person too, especially when it first happened. But like, that's just some silly stuff. Like Jeff Pigeon, now give me a break. And there's others I would love to talk about on here, but they've never said anything on social media, and I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But there's some of these people that are big people that have done just tremendous things. And I know it's a blend of probably like who they think has potential for the future, who's close to retirement. Maybe Jeff took a package. I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know all the answer. Maybe they took a retirement deal, an early retirement deal. I'm sure he's been there so long. I'm sure he has like shares in the company and all these massive things that maybe add up to a lot of money. So it's probably this blend of people that are seasoned that have big paychecks versus people that they think have potential. And what do you do for all this stuff? But there's just been, since like 2013, too many of these. It's not abnormal though. It just feels like too many from the outside. But it's probably not more than an average company, but it just hurts.
I know.
It really stinks.
Especially seeing like the familiar names and stuff too.
Yeah, it's bonkers. So I wanted to at least bring that up. You're not going to like talk about anybody in particular. Like we talked to them and then they were let go. That's not why I wanted to do it ahead of time. It was just more of like, before we talk about this, I want to at least address that like this is before that.
Yeah, my studio visit was before that.
Yeah. And originally we had heard that it was going to be right after Inside Out 2 came out.
Yeah.
So it seemed, I mean, obviously that news changed, or we heard incorrectly. But it was just also a shock to us because we were waiting for it after, not before. But I'm sure it was a little bit of strategy, like get the bad news out of the way before the film releases. They were probably worried, like, is there going to be a backlash to this? Is there going to be any...
Right.
Is anybody going to write anything negative that might make people not want to go to the theater? It's tough. It's tough. So we're going to talk about a few other things from that too, in reference. But let's get into a little bit about your trip to the studio. I'd like to hear, just your experience. So what was it like your first time being back since October 2019? For
I was just there last year for Elemental.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. Okay. So what was it like? The standard. Was it still just as exciting going through the gates?
Always. So this trip was absolutely fantastic. So I think this was like the 6th or 7th time I've been out. I can't remember.
We talked about this on the last podcast too, but whatever.
Regardless. So I was there last year for Elemental. I think you guys know, we kind of like decide who's going to go for which film if we happen to get invited out.
Yeah, we never take it for granted.
Nope.
But you and I jostle for who we know, who's working on the film. They will send us ahead of time, like these are the people that are going to be in the presentations. And if Julie and I happen to know a group of artists better than another.
Or like, I really would like to do, you did Inside Out 1, I would like to do Inside Out 2, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Even though the one that was non-negotiable for me was any Cars or Toy Story. Now you can
And
negotiate.
Incredibles. That was always
that's right.
non-negotiable.
Those three.
And I'm always like, sure, fine.
But then, Toy Story 5, you can put your name in the hat now.
That's true.
Assuming we get invited. Again,
Yeah.
we don't want to be presumptive. They've cut back in a lot of these different areas. So, okay. So, yeah, go through like what it was like going in. What'd you see?
So
How
I
was
have
this?
notes on this. So this was my favorite trip since Monsters University. And Monsters University was our very first time being invited out.
Yeah.
Now, the Monsters University press event was, huge. They had like a band. They had like the scare tables like set out. Like it was like college, like
Ping pong
orientation
tables.
day. It was like so cool. This one was like just as good, if not better. Like
All right.
instead,
So you're going to have to give the receipts, as
I will.
they
Okay,
say with
I will.
that.
Okay, so like the first night, standard. Like we watched the footage, we eat, the food. I was able to snap pictures and do all that in the evening time. The next day, so we go in, we have like this giant breakfast waiting for us. We eat breakfast, we get split into groups. But instead of previous press events where we go into the conference rooms that are like upstairs in the Steve Jobs building, kind of overlooking the atrium, we go to, it's like a day in the life of how the film is made. So we go back into the animation department and we sit in one of their, the fix animation. So we walk near the Knife and Fiddle and they have like the fix animation room. This is like where the team actually like shows their animation and we sit and they present it. And then there's like a team of like 4 to 5 people who are like, no, I think maybe you can do a little more squash and stretch with this. And I think you could do this. And it was actually Aaron McGriff's, his scene with the policemen, the security workers, when they're in the
Mind
vault.
Okay.
And that was, so we ended basically, as soon as that scene happened is basically where our footage stopped the night before. And I thought that footage was, I loved it. That was one of my favorite parts. And
What's funny is when we saw it in the theater, though, you had a reaction to that.
I did. It seemed slower than it did when we saw it at the studio.
I thought you said it was longer, like meaning like it was more cut fast or something,
Something seemed different from when I saw it at Pixar.
which is highly possible. They could have edited it differently, like where it was either more or less gags or slowed down so people
It
could
seemed
like
slowed down.
soak it in.
It seems slowed down, but maybe that's just me, I don't know, remembering it differently or something.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. But what's also really cool is that we had heard that one of the Partysaurus Rexes that I had made sits in the Knife and Fiddle.
And wait, we teased this in the last episode, right?
Yes, I think
And
we
we
did.
said like, hey, you've got to see if this is out there so you can get a picture of it.
Yeah.
Or, if we can talk about it.
Yeah.
So talk about it.
So the Knife and Fiddle is like this, like one of the little like bar areas they have, which is like surrounded by little animation pods. And there's like a big, there's like this like semi tiny stage, which the Red Hot Chili Peppers were there like a couple weeks prior because they're friends of Pete Docter.
Okay, now hold up. You never told me
I never told you that.
You never told me that.
Oh, well, yeah.
But that also explains, because Flea does a voice, obviously, in
Yes,
the movie,
so
the bass player of the Red Hot
They
Chili
like
Peppers.
played this like tiny concert there. But anyway, so like in front of the stage, like where the bar is, up on top of the bar is my Partysaurus Rex.
Still
and
there.
I about passed out. So I asked our representatives and I was like, can I please take a picture? And so I have a picture of it, but I haven't asked if we can post it.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's
just kind of for us, but
yeah.
it's really cool that it was there. And I mean, he looks fantastic.
Yeah, because you always worry about him with his delicate hair, like we talked about,
Yeah.
and everything, and his tutu and everything.
I mean, you can totally see him. Like,
Yeah. So think about that. A decade, 11 years prior, you made this Partysaurus Rex and sent it to Mark Walsh.
yeah.
That was the version that was going to go to John Lasseter,
Yeah. And then,
but ended up going on top, so that way it's there.
Yeah.
So if anybody in Pixar happens to be listening to this, that guy up there, don't touch him, please. It's because it's super cool that something that you created
is there?
exists within the walls of the studio,
No, it's wild.
up on display among all the other tchotchkes and crazy stuff that's
I know.
in the studio.
Oh man. And there's so much cool stuff there. So that was really cool. That was like how I started my day.
Well, hold on. Before you go any further, the one thing that is super cool about this is typically on these press events, think about your other ones you've been to. Have you even gone to the animation area?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Like they rarely will take you on like the tour
Yeah,
through
because
there.
they're afraid you're going to see stuff.
Yes. And if they do, you never going into like one of the rooms, and like everywhere we went, we were able to go, and we're walking by people like working on computers, like working on their stuff. I mean, there's stuff everywhere. I mean, we saw like artwork for Procrastination Land, which was a part of Riley's mind a scene that they couldn't fit in.
Right.
So, I mean, like,
Well, it's like when I was there for the first Inside Out, I saw Coco stuff.
yeah.
It's just wild because that was the only. They didn't go like deep into the animation area, but they went into like a conference room table right inside the doors that you have to like badge into to get through for the animation department. So it was literally like one step in, and then there's a table there, like where the production team. Or where like the assistants and people like that sat. So it's already cool enough that you're going in this event deeper into the studio than we typically go.
It felt really cool because there was so many other artists and, employees walking around. It felt, it
Like
was
you
just,
were in the studio,
yes, it felt like an experience.
not just in the atrium and then upstairs in a conference room.
Yes, it felt like a full on, like, wow.
Yeah, we're seeing how
Yeah.
the sauce is being made.
Yeah, and I was talking to a couple other people. I was like, "You guys have no idea how lucky you guys should feel if this is your first time. Like,
Yeah.
this is amazing."
Yeah.
Because we had gone on a tour previously,
2013 as well.
like a private, and we were able to see things like that, but nothing like,
Because honestly, if you didn't, that would have been the first time. Like, I wouldn't have known what you were talking about.
right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because you wouldn't have known.
We saw that, and I always thought it was Fork and Fiddle. It's Knife and
It's
Fiddle.
Knife and Fiddle.
It's Knife and Fiddle. Like, we saw that in 2013 as well, before the Partysaurus Rex, years before it was even up there. So, like, when you were able to tell me about this stuff, at least I was able to visually, like, place it. Or maybe I could have from, like, behind the scenes DVD stuff and things like that. But that kind of sets up the tone of how this event was different than some of the others, and let's just say we hope this continues.
oh my gosh, it was so cool.
So what else did you see, and what else was super cool about this visit versus some of the others?
Well, and then we did the animation part, and then we went to go see character design. And I will say the character design part. So this is where we had like our hands-on like craft time. We usually do like a craft thing. Like when I went for Coco, we had like this 3D mold of Pepita that we were able to like paint.
that was potentially one of the cooler ones.
That was cool because that was in, I don't know what that building's called. I never remember. It wasn't Brooklyn. It wasn't Steve Jobs. It was the building behind the pool.
Really?
Yes. I forget what that one's called, but that's
Well, that's where they do some of their like
that's like
training,
the sculpting.
like the university. That was like Pixar University stuff was over there.
I don't know. There was a lot of like art stuff over there, but that's where we did that. So that was cool because that was the first time I'd ever been in that building. So this time we were we got to like put our hands in a hat and like pick an emotion, and we drew an emotion. So I got confidence. my confidence pretty much just looked like Johnny Worthington. The shape of everything.
Yeah.
But that was with like Jason Deemer and as a Keiko Maruyama.
Yeah.
I was bummed because I really wanted this one to be super detailed because like we are such fans of Jason's.
Oh, sure.
And it was very broad, like and very quick, just like this is the characters. There was so much art in the room, and I just wanted to like look and like breathe it all in and like take it all in. And we spent a lot of time on the drawing part and showing everybody our drawings.
Aha. Versus like diving into a background of the characters or how they came up with some of the designs.
Yes. So I wish that part could have been like separate and we could have like done more like hearing about like the character design. Also because that is something that really interests us.
Sure. Yeah, in the first one, just to contrast that, in the first Inside Out press event, they did it in a small conference room with Ronnie Del Carmen and Josh Cooley running through storyboards, and then we drew Anger. So it was like as part of them running through a pitch, and then it got to the drawing at the end of that session.
So I think that's what we did in Elemental. I think it was more in the storyboard section that when we did like a drawing, like a sketch.
Yeah.
But I really want to like look at more and talk more about that.
Well, of course, you always want more time.
I know, especially
talk.
with someone that you
Yeah.
are a fan of.
Yeah, there are. He's. I mean, Kiko's amazing too. Don't get us wrong, but Jason's stuff. I mean, it's just
because
stupid.
we've like
It's
followed
stupid
his
good.
we followed his career for so long, and
You're right.
like it's stupid good. Like
I know.
I
And then
don't-
you hear his background, and he's like, "I never did any training. I was a skateboarder. I kind of was like, I'm good at drawing." He was helping move furniture, and they're like, "We need some work at Pixar." Like he was like literally, I think he said he was like a furniture mover, and then he's like, "Well, we need some help here at this studio that you're moving furniture into," and he applied.
yeah,
It's like,
It's
okay,
crazy.
shut up.
So the next one we went into was kind of backtrack.
Okay.
On our first night though, when we sat down in the theater to watch the film, like the footage, Pete Docter was there and he gave like a little introduction, which is really cool because he's like, this film's in good hands, and then so he introduced Kelsey. And it was really cool because Kelsey was like, hey, hey. And he pointed to me because
Yeah.
he's like, I recognize that. And then said hi to me like in front of her. So that one like made me feel super special because like I haven't seen him really talk to him like MU, but then I saw him like passing. And I think you saw him too passing.
Yeah, I don't understand what
I
it
don't
is.
know how he remembers us.
I
Like,
don't,
but
especially me, because I didn't even talk to him on, like, you did a session with him in The Good Dinosaur?
no, I don't think so. I think I just saw him during the Good Dinosaur visit,
Okay.
like in the hallway.
What was the drawing session that you did with him and he saved you a seat at the boards? Wasn't that during The Good Dinosaur one? Like where he's like, you walked in and they
no,
were
was
going to
it-
go through and they were
was it-
like,
Was it Coco? Maybe Good Time. I don't remember.
I know, isn't that
But you're
silly?
right. There was one.
Yeah. So like he at least talked to you
Yeah.
there. You saw him one other time. We interviewed him for Party Central. He was kind enough to send us some amazing like
Oh, yeah.
a onesie for Leo when
Oh, my
we were
gosh.
having him and he autographed it and drew some monsters on it. He's super sweet and nice.
He's literally, I mean, honestly, and like hearing him talk and like his passion, he is like not even joy. I would just say kindness. He is like,
Heart.
I don't know. He's
Kindness?
like kindness.
All right. Yeah, I love it.
Just kindness. Like the warm, like a warm shade would like a warm glow is his color. But like whatever shape kindness would be, that is like him.
Yeah.
He is like so kind and thoughtful, and he's very emotional. When he would talk, like when we had like our Q&A on the second day and stuff, when he would talk about his family and his kids and stuff, and he'd get emotional, like you could see tears.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like I love it. And then it would make me get tears because then I think about Leo and us, and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
So was this in the Steve Jobs building or Brooklyn? The theater was still in Steve Jobs, right?
Yeah, We did the theater in Steve Jobs and then the Q&A in Steve Jobs.
Okay.
So then we went to the next stop we went to on our back to day 2 is storyboard session. So he was in there with that one, and it was like Becca McVeigh and Josh Hoffman, and that one was super cool. So I did not know of Becca yet, and she was the story artist who pitched basically when the puberty button goes off within Riley's mind. So she showed how she pitched that scene, and like they gave her notes and how she fixed the notes. So just like how she would do it, you know, on a day-to-day, like a real day at Pixar is how they did it. So Becca seems very quiet. Okay. But when she had to act out the scene, I was like, who is this girl?
She came alive.
Yes, because that's like how I feel. Like in certain settings, I just feel like, oh, I'm quiet. And like I feel so shy and stuff. But when she had to pitch her scene because she has to act it out, I was like, you have so much confidence and you are so, like, you seem like so outgoing. It's crazy to me. Like the story artists, like not only are they like talented artists because she was an amazing artist, but like the voices she had to do for all the characters, like it was really cool to see.
Yeah, you
like,
got to sell it.
Huge fan of her. Like I like, and then like so embarrassing. Like I keep thinking about this. I saw her in the bathroom and I said, hey, it was so great to see you again. And I felt so embarrassed, but I just had to say, like, I was
like talking to people in the bathroom.
I know. I like totally threw her off guard, but like she was just so kind. But I was like, so like, gosh, like it was just really cool.
Yeah.
So it was cool to like meet someone new and like see her work because like she's someone that I definitely want to, you know, keep following.
Yeah.
So let me keep looking at my notes. Oh,
Where's your vocal session?
that's my next one. That's what I'm doing right now.
I'm excited for it.
So this is really cool. So like our contacts at Pixar had asked me like, oh, have you ever been in the vocal booth? And I was like, no, I've seen the one in the Steve Jobs building, but I've never been in Brooklyn. And they were like, oh no, you have to go to Brooklyn. Like that's where everyone filmed.
Records
like that's
now.
where everyone records now.
Yeah.
So they were breaking us into smaller groups, and half of them were doing the one in the Steve Jobs building, and half of them were going to Brooklyn. They made
I didn't know that.
yeah, so they made me go to Brooklyn, and I was like, oh my gosh! So I was with 4 other people, and we go into the studio, into the recording studio, which is awesome. And like Vince Caro was there, and like I was like, okay, this is like legendary, and. We go into the room and it feels like you're in a submarine. You can't even hear your own thoughts. Like you can hear your own thoughts.
The echoes are cut way down. Yeah.
It's like amazing. So the 4 of us are there and then they're like, okay, we're all going to do a scene. And Julie, you're up first. And I was like, what? Like I just want to see someone do it first. I was so nervous.
Yeah.
So we did the scene and we've posted it on our social media. It was so fun, but I wish I could have done it again. Like after like the initial shock of doing it, I wish I'd been like, can I please like raise my hand at the end and like, can I please just try it one more time?
No, I don't think you needed to. It was so good.
Oh, if I could do it again now, I would do like so much better because like
I think you would have overthought it then. This was like your natural like take.
Yeah.
I think you would have tried maybe too hard or something.
Maybe.
Because every single person that has seen it has been like, wow, that's like really good.
Aw.
Like, I mean, that's what people wrote on social media. We had some Pixar people that commented on it. You know, I've shown it to people. Our family is like, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really
Yeah. So the scene that you
Cool.
got to overlay your voice on, obviously, typically
was the introduction of anxiety.
Yeah. So where she comes in at the board, who made the console orange? I didn't make it. I didn't do it. You know, all this other stuff. So you've seen that clip a bunch of times. If you haven't seen it, you can go to our social media channels and watch this clip. I edited it so it would show the real clip and then the part that you did over the top of it. But they cut Joy's voice out. So it's not like you were talking on top of her.
No,
You just replaced
Yes.
her voice totally in the final animation, so you had to like do it a couple times and match.
Yes,
So
we
in
were all
how-
Joy. Like everyone got to
everyone
be Joy.
that did it was Joy.
Boys,
so if
girls.
so if you've seen some of these other ones that are out there, that's what it is too. But yeah, it was like, yeah, and we have the full version that's unedited, and it's hilarious because a couple times it's just like when we're recording here. Sometimes you'll go, "Oh, I messed that one up."
Yeah.
So yeah, it was
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Yeah, it was
I don't
fun.
know how you could think you'd want to do it again.
Oh.
But what's it like when you're like at the microphone? What's your thought? Are you
Okay, so
like,
not only are you at the microphone, and I mean, I utilize the bars to like hold on and stuff like that.
it's almost like a
There's
treadmill
like screens
bar.
in front of you.
Yeah, it's a
So I
screen
have,
and it's a treadmill bar that you can like hold onto on the side or the front.
yeah, and then like I have the screen playing the footage, and I have a big sheet in front of me that has the script. And it's hard because sometimes my brain and my mouth, like I can't think that quickly, but you end up doing it. And sometimes I think I'm thinking too quickly, so I'm like ahead of it. I'm like an overthinker, but not with like ADHD. I don't know.
You don't
it's
have
like,
ADHD.
I know, but it just seems like a mess. It was very nerve-wracking. And then you have like
The other people watching.
the other 3 random people that weren't even in my group. They were in other groups. So I didn't even like know, which is fine. Like I'm fine with that. But then the other girl who was sitting there who works at Pixar, she had told me, I'm such a fan of you guys. Like a lot of us get like our news from you guys. And I'm just like, awesome. And then I'm like, Julie, you're first. And I'm like, oh,
That's awesome.
yeah. So it was really exciting, really fun, but also, whoa, nerve-wracking. But I wish I could do it again.
I so hope they do that again because I desperately want to do that.
I will tell you though, after seeing it, I'm like, oh man, please. I just want one line.
That's what we both want.
Yes, I just want one.
I don't want one line. I want a whole movie.
Oh, and it's funny because our son, every time that we've seen the 4 times that he and I have gone to see the movie, every time that scene comes on, he looks at me and smiles.
Yeah.
Oh, makes me want to cry.
So it's like you're part of it. You're part of
He
that
just looks
scene
at me and
now.
smiles.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was super cool. And then our last session we did was the virtual camera. So that was cool because we got to hold like this handheld camera thing with an iPad on it. And it was the virtual set. So we got to like walk up really close to joints. We could walk around
When you
them.
say it's the virtual set, you're meaning the virtual set of inside Riley's mind where you see
inside headquarters.
inside headquarters.
So
There you
it's
go.
like this square room and there was like seating all around it. And we could just walk around the square room and like use different cameras.
The real room was
The real,
square.
the physical room.
And you were holding a device that had a camera that would show you as
like
if it
on
was,
the screen of the iPad.
as if it was in a way virtual reality.
Yes.
Where you could move your body and see a full 360 of the
yeah.
headquarters, and you could go to all sorts of crazy places like they told you about stuff that hadn't been seen in the first movie about
Right.
like lockers. So talk about like
Oh, yeah,
what
that
that
there's-
was like seeing it and all that.
That there's lockers around the corner, and that's how we learned about Anger's room where nostalgia came out. That was originally Anger's steam room from Inside Out 1. They cut that scene, so they kept that room there because they had already created the door. So that's how they had a place for nostalgia to keep coming in and out of the scene.
What about the rooms upstairs?
Oh yeah, the rooms upstairs,
bedrooms
like the
for the
bedrooms. You
emotions.
could just look at the doors, basically. But was really cool, or like to see the whole 360 that they build the whole room, because several people did not realize that they built an entire 360 model.
They would think
They thought it was just flat,
Well-
like on traditional animation, like on a page.
well, I would say how most people would attribute it is like the Friends or Seinfeld set. Most people would think of a set like that, where like you back
Oh.
the cameras up and you see the wood the 2x4s on the side,
Yes.
and you just see Jerry's apartment
Yeah.
or the friend's cafe.
Yeah.
And then to the right of that is like, oh, that's Monica and Rachel's apartment.
Right.
Like, so I think most people think that they are these little snippets versus
A world.
an actual full 360 room that the characters can be anywhere in, and you can shoot from any angle, and now you don't have to worry about, like, they have to do that in real shows, so they have to cut around something because that, oh, we can't go that far or else we would see the the audience or a 2x4 or whatever. So it's really cool that they do that, but it's not, in my mind, for the average like person that they might bring into that press event. I'm not surprised that they wouldn't realize that. But that's still super cool that you got to like hold that thing and whoop, like
Oh,
zip
yeah.
around and see where. And they changed all like the cameras, like they could show
Oh,
like with a wide
I got
angle.
to change it.
Yeah. Like
You would have geeked out, and I did tell him that. I'm like, gosh, I wish my husband was here to see this. And I wish I would have talked to Adam a little
it
more.
was Adam Habib that was
Yeah.
in there. Yeah.
So then after that, we walked through the halls again, like just, near everybody's office. And like, I got to say hi to a couple people. So that was cool. And then we go downstairs to editing, which was really cool because my number one note when we watched the footage that we saw was the timing and the pacing of this film was perfection. I still think that, like
Yeah.
to this day, like, spoiler alert, I give Inside Out 2 10 out of 10. Like, I absolutely love it. So I did tell Marissa Horowitz, who was the chief editor, I believe, like the number one lead editor, how awesome it was. And this is her first film at Pixar.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So she was talking to us about her team, and like, we got to sit in her room and see all of her like notes that were everywhere because she wasn't done with the film yet. So it was just really cool. And then that was our last thing. Then I went shopping and made reels.
There you go. If you think, or do you have any
Oh,
other?
I mean, and then we did our roundtable discussion after lunch.
Oh, yeah. So that's just like where you come in. Was it just Kelsey Mann? Was Pete Docter there for that one? That was him,
Mark Nielsen
Mark Nielsen, the producer. And then it
and
was
just Kelsey.
them.
And then it was just like, well, let's
Yep.
What
It's always
questions?
kind of awkward because you think there's going to be some type of intro. They sit down and they're like, well,
Yeah.
go ahead. And then people just ask them.
and that's where he was getting like emotional and stuff. And it was really just cool to see
Yeah.
and hear.
Any other things you had from your little pages and notes over there?
No, I'm good with my notes. Yeah,
Okay.
just like, and then
Well, as we
I finished up and did shopping. Oh, we got like special like little donuts
you could choose the flavor of the donut, right?
that was like
for the
Envy
different emotions.
themed. Yeah, they were delicious.
Which
they
one
were
did you have?
Envy. They were made by one of the Pixar patisserie
At the
cafe workers, and they were so good. I think they have like Donut Wednesdays or something like that, and they like sell out so fast. Oh my gosh. Besides the fact that the Envy icing turned my lips like like neon teal.
I will remember that if I go there and I have
I mean,
the
and I
option of
tried to
something-
eat it so careful. I was like eating it like crazily because I was about to hop on a flight back home. It was so good.
Yeah. That's so cool.
It was really a truly memorable time because of just how we got to interact with the employees and to see how like not like a so typical day is, but like how a generic day could be.
Yeah.
You
Like
know,
if you were to
it's-
think about editing in general.
Yeah,
this is
it
what
kind
would
of
be
showed
like.
you like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what we would do. This is what we do. But we got to be in the physical rooms of like all these places.
a big
and that
difference.
was really neat.
It's a big difference than just talking about it in a conference room.
Yeah. Now, we were in a conference room for the character design because obviously they are usually
Well, yeah.
in their own little office.
Yeah. They're coming in between.
But it was in a different conference room that I'd never gone in before,
Mm-hmm.
like in between offices. So that was cool.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if you obviously think of anything else as we continue to talk, feel free to interject.
Okay.
So the next thing that we wanted to shift gears and talk about a little bit are the summary and some of our thoughts and notes on the Bloomberg article, the EW article, as well as the Time Magazine article. And first off, don't get me started on the Time article. It was constantly reloading on the page. It was using memory and Safari where it would say this page is using a lot of memory.
I can't stand that.
Ugh, so many ads.
I get so frustrated.
It literally froze. I put it into reader mode where it takes off all the ads and everything, and it was still forcing a reload and then freezing. I was like, okay, Time. Then you had the other extreme, which was Bloomberg, because it's behind a paywall. So you had to be a subscriber in order to read it. Somebody else found it on an archive site, so we were able to at least get pieces of it. And then EW was kind of in the middle. Lots of ads. Such a hard thing with websites now. Like, no, I'm sure they're plowing more ads on because it's just such an interesting thing. People aren't clicking through to the articles because of social media. Mm-hmm. But these articles were pretty pivotal in terms of their release timing, which we should have shared this news earlier. They were about a month. Some of them were a month ago. So mid and early June were the majority of these. And the main talking, the people that were talking in them was an interview with Pete Docter, two of the articles, the Time and EW article, and then Jim Morris was the Bloomberg article. So what we wanted to do, and it's going to kind of bounce between articles, is it's going to break it down between like their thoughts as far as what's going on at Pixar and why some things went wrong, what's next in terms of the features. I have some like bottom line thoughts, and then also some of the shorts that are for Disney Plus or series. So I want to talk through some of these. All right, so as I read these and they talk about what they cite as potentially going wrong or just some ways when they were looking at films in retrospect, I had one potential hot take before we get down too far into it. And I think that some of these issues that they're kind of talking about stem as early as John Lasseter and Ed Catmull being in charge of both Pixar and Disney Animation. I feel like it's a little bit of a cautionary tale of we need more, we need more, we need more, but we have these resources. Mm-hmm. So now, it's all the way back, Disney was taking time from Lasseter and Catmull, who were in charge of only Pixar. Now they were in charge of both. Then you're talking about we want more movies. So they were talking about, if you remember, they were going to do one film one year and then an original and a sequel the next year. So it was going to be this 1-2-1-2 thing. And I think that lends itself to you got to have more people in these roles, and they didn't have the succession plan in place, so they started doing things like Spark Shorts and all to try to find new directors. Then that opened up a new can of worms as far as who's going to run that. Lindsay Collins is no longer in that role. She's in charge of another one. So, okay. In the article, the Bloomberg one first, still under the what they kind of think went wrong, a wider restructuring under Iger's predecessor, Bob Chapek, centralized budgetary and distribution decisions in Burbank, with Pixar's artists and managers having no clue whether their movies were bound for a theater or an app, aka Disney Plus, let alone a say in the decision. When Disney, striving to emulate Netflix incorporated business model and valuation, threw Soul, Luca, and Turning Red straight onto its subscription service. It quote, felt a little like death, Docter says. So that's kind of the first thing where we're talking about the parent company of Disney, and we're wondering, like, what is going on at Pixar? We had heard, these allusions that, in earlier things, that Disney would scrub some of their stories and send it back and say, do it this way. Now we're hearing as far as that some of those decisions, and I think we kind of knew it, but this is solidifying it, that, they were telling them where these films are going to be released. The interesting thing, though, as far as, because I read all of these with what went wrong, and then it should be what are the next steps. There wasn't a mention if Iger moved that back under Pixar's power or not? When Iger came back, did he decentralize budget and distribution back to Pixar? So that's just out there. We don't know. So the article also cites some things that went wrong, and I think we and others have talked about it too, about the stories leaning on being too personal, that audiences weren't connecting with them. I've had some additional thoughts on this too. I've had some additional introspection.
Okay.
So in the article, they cite that Turning Red was a story about Domi and her mom, that Luca was about Enrico's summer, Elemental was Pete Sohn's story of his parents immigrating to the United States. But then I started thinking, and that was my initial reaction too. We need to make more universal stories. But then I was like, well, Inside Out, the first one, was the story of Pete and his interactions with his daughter as she moved into her teenage years. That's incredibly personal. That's a story of almost like Turning Red, a mom and a daughter. This is a father and a daughter. So I'm like, wait a minute. If the stories for some of the other biggest successes were also pretty personal, we're going to talk about some of these. So I think the difference is how the stories resolved. So the Turning Red, Luca, Elemental were kind of slice of life movies. It was like Luca, it's like a little slice of life during one summer. What happened then? It wasn't really about this big lesson. It was just a gorgeous romp through the Italian seaside. It had some, of course, other elements, but Inside Out was more universal in the fact that although it was a story about a dad and his teenage daughter, it stepped back and it talked about emotions. So,
because it didn't really focus on Riley, it was more of the emotions that we all have.
Yes,
kind of
whether male or female, there was a lot of stuff. No shade being thrown on Turning Red, but it was distinctively leaning towards a female film. That's okay. I'm not saying they can't make those.
Yeah. No, because that's one of your favorites.
I'd be in the middle somewhere in terms of grand scheme of things. But yes, I do love it. Except for some of the resolution at the end. There's some things
You like the styling a lot.
The styling is amazing. The color is amazing. There's a lot of great decisions that were made in that movie. The Time article also, so switching again, Bloomberg and Time, both kind of talking about this same thing, that talks about Stanton coming up with the idea of finding Nemo when he was realizing he was being a little bit of a helicopter parent to his son. So that balance of, well, so Time quotes Pete Docter, and he says, Nemo is very personal. Andrew Stanton is obviously not a fish, and he's not a single dad like Marlon was, but he recognized his own smothering of his child in an effort to protect them. He was able to springboard off of that to tell stories about octopuses and all sorts of wild, fun stuff. Docter points out it can be difficult to come up with original ideas that resonate with a wide audience 2 decades into the studio's existence. A lot of people say, I totally thought toys came to life when I wasn't in my room. I totally believed there were monsters in my closet, he says. We're still rummaging around for things like that, but it's harder and harder to find that as we're in our 28th movie or whatever. So a general thought that I had out of that is that with a good story, a good cast of characters, that take a personal idea and expand it out to extrapolate and present the idea in a broad sense is what sells. So we accept the conceit that Toy Story is a movie about your toys coming to life when you leave a room. But that's not what the movie's about. That's what we're rewarded with after we leave the theater. We're rewarded with, like, during it, we're amazed when Woody comes to life at the beginning of that movie. But that's not what the movie's about. But that's the conceit that they sold us on. So I feel like it because Toy Story is all about like life. What does it mean to be eternally, to live forever, like Toy Story 2, or being replaced, Toy Story 1. We all have these life things. So Nemo, it's not about a dad being a helicopter parent to his son. The difference is you got to take that one idea, and I know I say this, it's super easy, right? You have to take that one idea and back it up another step and say, I had the inspiration from this idea, but it's not what the movie's about.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it can get, I think that's where they're trying to focus now.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of it being a slice of life film, looking at my relationship with my mom and my and the daughter, or a summer in Italy, what's the bigger thing that we're trying to sell here? You know, monsters being in the closet wasn't really what that movie was about. It was just a cool thing that was like, wow, that happens, and yeah, we all do believe that. But that's not what the movie was about. So that's the first thing that when they cite what's going wrong and where they're looking. Did I overstate that one?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So what's next? So when asked about the success of Inside Out 2 in theaters, so this was before the movie came out again, if this doesn't do well in theaters, I think it just means we're going to have to think even more radically about how we run our business. In the Monsters, Inc. through Ratatouille days, there was more freedom to explore. So my note in between here is basically pre-Disney merger.
Yeah.
Because that was 2006.
Yeah.
Ratatouille would have been in development prior to that. And now we're tightening the belt, and we're really going to be targeted with when we take risks. So that's pretty direct, that they were sweating it. Could you imagine, like, if it didn't do well, we'd have to think more radically about how we run our business? What would Pixar be?
I don't know.
Like, he goes on to say he's excited about this time because the uncertainty means that they have to push themselves a little bit and they have to do things.
Means, thinking outside the box.
Yeah. So then they talk about other films that could be coming. And the article teases that Finding Nemo and The Incredibles are regarded as particularly strong candidates for new titles. So Pete says, where else have we not gone in the ocean? The ocean's a big place. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. We're kind of fishing around. Haha. So he's pulling dad jokes in here. Love it. So I think it's safe to say that at least it's being looked into. I don't know if I have this in my notes, so I'll hold off on it in my head right now. But it also then Bloomberg comes back to Lindsay Collins. So when Pixar determined it needed to return to its roots in 2022, it appointed Lindsay Collins to be a senior vice president for development. Part of her job was to help Morris, so Jim Morris, the president, and Pete Docter, the chief creative officer, establish which Pixar stories were worth revisiting. So is her role like literally just exploring sequel opportunities?
Probably.
So Collins, who's been with the company since 1997 and produced award-winning titles such as WALL-E, is advising on development for movies to be released in 2027 and beyond. So at this point, we only know until Toy Story 5, which is 2026.
And Elio.
Well, I'm saying the latest one is, yes, Elio's 2025, Toy Story 5, 2026. So they're talking about movies that are released even after Toy Story 5 is what she's advising on. So I guess we'll see, as of 2027, we'll see how Lindsay's vision is kind of panning out, balancing between which films we should
Which we'll probably find out at D23.
Yeah, that's in September? Oh, no.
Or August.
Yeah.
September, August.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. So she has a quote in the article where she asked her son about a sequel for Incredibles 3. And he said, money grab. And I, Lindsay Collins, how she said it, was like, expletive. Sequels are a double-edged sword because the audience can be brutal and so quick to judge unless they're worthy. So my note on top of this is, sorry to Lindsay's son, Incredibles 3 is going to happen.
Oh, I hope it does because, everyone loves the Marvel movies and...
They're on a downswing, though.
Yeah, but everyone loves Incredibles. it's a good... And my last one was really dark. That had some.
Well, hang on though.
I mean, not dark, but like had some.
The Screenslaver had really dark elements that
Yeah.
were, I mean, chilling in such a good way to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that they went there with that Screenslaver speech.
Yeah.
His character resolved a little too easily, but that scene and that lead up was amazing. The whole "come get me, I'm waiting," superheroes. It's in a way it was like the whole like Syndrome speech when everybody's special, no one will be. It was kind of like him, like how superheroes think they're so awesome. But we had already heard rumors that an Incredibles sequel was being worked on. But Pete, in the EW article, solidifies it even more. And of course, we couldn't talk about it. But now that he talks about it, his quote was that The Incredibles, that it feels like it definitely has more room to play with. We've also heard that Monsters sequel, well, okay, he talks about it too. I shouldn't even say that. I'm going to skip forward. So in my notes, so we had heard that a Monsters sequel was being looked at, and he in EW again says, we've been searching for ideas for Monsters Inc. sequel for a long time, and we haven't seen enough to start working on anything yet. But as of now, we've heard that that's not really on the table currently.
Which bums me out because I know we're going to talk about Monsters at Work and stuff.
Briefly.
Yeah, but I really love the Monsters franchise. Like a lot.
Who doesn't? They're so good. And I hate to say it, you got to worry. You're getting up there in terms of
I know.
Billy Crystal and John Goodman.
I know.
And it's going to be hard to do a sequel
You can't.
without those two.
You can't.
Who can do a voice like Mike?
No one.
Who can do that?
And he loves it too.
Oh, Billy Crystal.
Yes, that's
yeah,
right. Like,
he
he loves
absolutely
it.
loves it. Yeah, I know. It's so cute how much he loves it.
Mm-hmm.
Which ties into, we'll come back to it with Lewis Black talking about his role with Anger and how he appreciates it. The articles, this is like a totally in-betweener, and then we're going to talk about Toy Story 5 and some other juicy details we found out. But the articles also talk about the fact of, would Pixar ever do a live-action film? Pete Docter basically says that he's going to bite him in the butt to say it, but he said no. He has no interest in doing them personally, and he feels like they're derivative. I should also throw out there that Wikipedia says that the Lion King 2019 release, going back to the box office numbers, I'm totally jumping all over the place, says that that's the top grossing animated film of all time. I'm sorry, no.
Wikipedia lies.
They're both computer, one's computer animated, one's computer graphics. Shut up. It's not the same spirit of what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I'm not crazy, right?
No.
Okay. Toy Story 5. So this news started up, I think, at the end of May, or maybe even right at the beginning of June as well. So Twitter user The Montyverse, who doesn't have like a big film following or anything like that. He's not, officially marked, like checkmark from Twitter or anything. He started this discussion point after being at an Inside Out 2 screening in which Pete Docter was holding a Q&A after. And the exact quote of the tweet was, after our screening of Inside Out 2, Pixar CEO Pete Docter said that animation is going to evolve and look very different in the next several years. First off, I stop there. I want to know what that means. He also seemingly revealed that the upcoming Toy Story 5 will be directed by longtime Pixar director Andrew Stanton. So that took on a life of its own, and it bugged me that everybody was reporting on it. I mean, big sites were reporting on it after this tweet from someone that, a couple hundred followers, something like that. I'm not saying you have to have a lot to have a fact.
Right.
But what I am saying is his text in his own tweet said he also seemingly revealed. So even he's kind of like, wait, did he? Didn't he?
Yeah.
But people are now reporting it as fact. So of course we start digging around. And we should have written the article just to get ahead of it. But all we'll say is that we've confirmed it, that he is involved with the project. And even though everyone's reporting it as 100% true, it's kind of part of the truth. It's not the whole truth. That's all I can say.
Interesting.
But he's involved. His name is attributed to the project. And no, it is not like my initial thought was I think he was doing the treatment of the script or the first write of the film like he did for Toy Story 4 and many of the other Toy Stories before that. That's what I originally thought. But no, he is involved from a directing standpoint, but it's part of the truth, not the whole truth. Along those same
Interesting, because he's been kind of quiet for
yeah.
many years.
Yeah, so we set this out among our Pixar group. When that tweet came out, among our Pixar chat group that we have of friends that just all talk about Pixar. And one of our friends replied with the gif of Stinky Pete from Toy Story 2 saying, "The prodigal son has returned." And yeah, please, can I get some news on Stanton?
I know.
I originally, when I wrote up these show notes, I had a whole thing. I know we're already at like an hour and 20 something. I had a whole thing where the live action movies that he was working on, interestingly enough, he was working on a film that had Maya Hawke in it. So I was like, maybe that's where the connection first started.
Yeah, maybe.
When he was talking to her. But yeah, he was doing all these other live action films. He was directing more episodes of other shows that have been on other, because he started out originally, of course, with John Carter movie, and then
You do Stranger Things?
he did a couple episodes of Stranger Things. Yeah, he did other shows. He was working on other live action things, other sci-fi films. So, yeah. So I need to hear more, and I hope to hear more about what is going on with Andrew Stanton. We miss him. Andy.
Yeah.
Because we hear so much. I mean, it's almost like because the original pillars, Lasseter did his thing. He's out of the studio. We got Pete Docter that's stepped up now. Fantastic. We weren't hearing a whole lot from him lately. So hearing this and seeing his name in all these articles and doing press for Inside Out 2, that's just made me happier.
Oh, yeah, me too.
One of the original pillars that I would say as well with...
Bob Peterson?
Oh, he's still there.
Yeah, I know.
I'm saying as far as like director, co-director, editor is co-director.
Lee Unkrich?
Lee Unkrich, thank you. Don't you hate when your mind just can't present it? But yeah, he left. And then, Stanton is like the only one that was from like that original, like you see him in all the behind the scenes stuff where it's like, we want to know what's going on with Stanton. And he, one day after the whole thing blew up with the guy that said that he knew the original story of Andy and where the Woody doll came from. Remember that guy? That it was Mike or something like that. He put out a whole video on his channel that talked about that it was like Woody came from a cereal box and Woody's dad was so-and-so, or Andy's dad was the original owner and it was passed down. And it was like, it blew up the internet. We wrote a post about it. The Carlin brothers interviewed him, Super Carlin brothers. And so anyways, Andrew Stanton replied to all of these messages that were going around on Twitter, and he was like, utter garbage. It's all a lie. I was there. This guy wasn't. And he said it was because another artist wasn't, I don't think it was Jeff Pigeon. I got to look at it again. But he was like, this guy told me, Joe Ranft. He said Joe Ranft. So there was no way that anybody could validate it either. So, but it was like this whole long thing where he was like crying in the video and everything. And like, it was just so emotional and all these other things. So everybody believed him until Stanton was like,
And I don't remember this.
Wow.
I don't remember anything anymore.
Yes, you do. You're married to me and my name is TJ.
I know that.
But yeah, so he did this whole thing. And anyways, after that, it was literally like Stanton deleted everything.
Yeah.
All his social media. He was like fed up with it. And then you never heard anything from him again. I told you before, like early days before Apple Music, he was a subscriber to the music service Rdio, and I was following him on there, and it was so cool because I'm like, ooh, I get to see what he's listening to. And then like it was like, ooh, he was listening to this, and I'm like, I bet he's writing a script right now for that Finding Dory. And it was like, it would have all lined up timing wise. It was just so cool. But yeah, nothing. I hate that he like turned off the light switch and went away. Sure, it's probably for his own sanity and being overworked or pushing himself for a lot of years. But we'll be excited to see him involved with Toy Story 5. The next one that's kind of the whole truth, but not the whole truth, is very perplexing. It's between two articles. They say two different things. So, and I think they're both true. So in the Bloomberg article, Pete says, if Inside Out 2 works, it could lead to a theatrical release model that buttresses Pixar's original films. I think this is actually not a quote from him. Such as an undisclosed project from Turning Red director Domi Shi, who was recently elevated to the Brain Trust. That actually was his quote. So he says that. But then there's another quote, and why didn't I have it right there too? Well, there's another quote that jumps in here from the EW article, and I'll probably see it again with my eyes here in a second. But it talks about the fact, here it is. In the EW article, Pete Docter says Domi Shi, who's already done Turning Red, is working on Elio, and you can see the experience level. So in one, it says that Domi Shi is working on an undisclosed project.
And then the other one announces that she's the new director.
Well, that she's working on Elio.
Okay.
Now, that led everybody to write posts saying that Domi Shi is directing Elio. Nothing else has been said.
Right.
But what we will say is that yet again, it's part of the truth. She's involved, but someone else is involved.
Yeah.
And it's odd that I will put it as a they, were not mentioned either. And I have been hitting Pixar's website about every day, waiting to see when they're going to update that page that says that Adrian Molina is directing Elio, to see if they bring up Domi Shi, Adrian Molina, or someone else. And Mary Alice Drum is the producer. So it's interesting that all these things have been out there, but they haven't really addressed them again. So that's, again, part of the truth, but not the whole truth. Wish I could say more. Also pretty cool that McDonald's toys, so crazy, because originally that was supposed to come out this year. Yeah. Elio was supposed to come out this year. So if you hit up eBay and you look for Elio McDonald's toys, you can get them.
Right. They were released in certain areas.
Other countries.
Was it Mexico?
I think it was like Latin American countries. Yeah, Mexico, and I think some other Latin American countries. Yeah, you can see them. So it's going to be interesting. Like, wait, why did Disney not hit the brakes on that? Because they stopped the books from coming out.
Yeah.
So what I can assume from that is that the toys themselves, the characters are still going to remain, but the story itself is different.
Maybe.
And they're like, nah, let's hold them for the American market because we'll probably push more Happy Meals in America than other countries. So it's probably minimal impact. We can still get rid of what we have, but why not just keep them if it's going to be later?
I don't know.
Very confusing. I really need to know and want to know.
I would like to know when that stuff kind of happens, when they push movies back and things come out. But I will tell you, I don't want to say devastated, but like really upset about the Inside Out 2 merchandise launch. Having it.
Sing it, sister.
There's nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing at Target. There's nothing at our Target with the Disney store. There's nothing.
So here's the prime example.
Unless you like are at a Disney park.
Disney Parks, right? Their website too. If you go to Disney Store, but
We went into a Walmart and we found 2 items.
yeah, those were what, Just Play, or were they Spin Master?
No,
I think they were Just Play.
Yeah, but they were just the 3 stuffed animals and then the anxiety that shakes. And then our Target had just the blind bags, the blind
that's
boxes. That's it.
Yeah,
Nothing else. I've never seen anything else.
yeah. There's definitely something else going on there from a product standpoint because
There's no blankets, no pillows, nothing.
and how do you not have sheets?
I know. Oh, I mean, I will say, I guess the Lego store has had.
That's true. The Mind Cubes, which was an interesting release. It was okay.
Yeah, it was.
But they had the best product probably so far is that the Marble Run.
That is so cool.
So if anybody hasn't seen that Marble Run, it's
but
like
Disney Store.
they have it on there. Yeah, exactly. And it's like go to disneystore.com because of course they rebranded again from Shop Disney back to Disney Store.
Yeah.
And it's like, you build a little track. It has terrible reviews.
Really?
But here's the problem with it. People are like, you build it and it falls apart. But that is kind of how the original Marble Run, if you have a regular Marble Run,
they're not great.
They're not the most sturdy thing, and you have to build them on a flat, hard surface.
Yeah, you can't really do it on carpet.
It would fall over immediately. But the thing is it's almost like a little bit of an engineering challenge. You can't do it for a super young kid. It's got to be somebody probably a little older, or a parent has to help. And then, you drop a marble in the top and it goes on a little course. It goes through some spinny wheels and it's inside out themed. And at the bottom has a little light projector. And instead of marbles, they're little clear things that looks like it's projecting a light like a memory would in headquarters. It's super cool. And I feel like it's being stunted by the reviews that are out there. So I feel like we need to write one.
Yeah, and I'm really bummed because I know Bluefy is like an extra character.
Should have had him.
Bluefy, there should be a plush Bluefy with Pouchy.
An adult-sized Pouchy that you can wear at the parks.
Yes, and there needs to be a stuffed animal of him at the park or at Disney or something. Like I'm just, they did a lot of merchandise for the first Inside Out, and I didn't really like that merchandise that was out, the action figures and stuff. So it's kind of like a weird, like product. Like I don't know what you would make for products, but you could do so many different like plush things for these characters or shirts or something.
They have some shirts out there on the Disney Store website, but where I was going to go with, we're lucky enough to have one of the Targets. Like not all of them have them. There's
With the Disney Store.
A couple in every state that have a Disney Store section attached to the side of the toy section. And it is still a Wish end cap.
Yes.
It's time to let that go.
I will say that Target with the Disney Store near us has never changed. Like the merchandise is always just generic Disney stuff.
Yeah. I was hoping
it's such a bummer because like the middle section is still like the main section is Wish.
Yeah, I was really hoping that when they came out with these like insert them into Target stores, that it was going to be like Target where there's merchandise resets all the time.
All the time.
New stuff is coming in and out, and it has stalled big time.
Like a year.
Yeah.
Like it's just been like just so stale.
When it first came out, we used to make special trips out to that one all the time.
Yeah.
So that way we could go, because it's a little further away than our like home Target.
I know. It's 8 miles instead of I think 6.
Yeah, whatever. But it's I don't know. It's kind of a bummer, but it's the Wish stuff from, like we were talking to people or some of our friends that I just met up with this last week that live in Florida, and they were talking about the character warehouse, like where some of like the discounted stuff goes. They're like, it's all Wish stuff. It's sitting, and I think that may be stopping them from producing new stuff. And Inside Out got the shaft because it's on the Disney Store website.
Yeah.
But it's in zero stores.
Nothing of it.
How does and the plush are so cool
and
to go see in stores.
And you know what
too.
bothers me too? is the amount of Lightyear stuff that is sitting on the Disney store at Target's shelves.
Yeah, that hurts anyways, though. Because
I know it does.
Well, Lightyear's still a Disney store thing.
But the amount of that, because they have like a Pixar section, and it's all Lightyear stuff.
Well, because unfortunately, they thought that movie was going to be massive.
I know, but when you're like, it's the new movie out right now.
I know at some point you've got to eat it and say it didn't work.
Yeah, clearance it out.
Either we donate, we clearance it beyond belief if we have to, just like Target does.
Mm-hmm.
In the summer section, when summer's ending and they need to make place for the new season, that stuff sometimes goes to like 90% off if it has to.
Oh my gosh, I just got a lot of like blind bag stuff for a trip coming up and they were all like 50 to 60% or 50 to 75% off.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we digress.
Yes.
All right,
Target Circle Days
I want
happening
to talk
now.
about just two more notes of things that were mentioned in the What's Next. So one of them was an Enrico film. So Enrico Casarosa is an EW article who did Luca, is doing another one that's just night and day. I don't know what that means, but that's what Pete said. It's night and day. Not being literal.
No,
he's just
but
saying it's probably night and day different than our
from
other
Luca,
things that we're doing that are originals. He did talk about how great it is that Elio is a film that has that universality that like we've all looked to the sky and wondered if we're alone or not. Mm-hmm. So it has kind of at least that hook that you can leave the theater and be like, well, maybe that is possible. Like, I knew there was something out there. Like, I knew my toys came to life. So, and then other sequels, EW again, he says, we're looking at everything, but we haven't really made a list that small of films like that because they listed specific films if they were going to be. The other thing I should say for Incredibles, since that's on the table, is this would be the first one that would be non-Brad Bird because he's at Skydance with John Lasseter making Ray Gun, a movie that he's had a script for decades. That he's been trying to get made and work out. So yeah, so it's interesting. Okay, so the bottom line. So there's some kind of summary posts that came out of this. So in the EW as well, Pete said, it would be nice to know that if we consistently deliver good films to theaters, then we can stay in business. I don't even think that's guaranteed right now.
Yikes.
Yeesh. But he said there's just so much new stuff out there. The streaming is there's so many choices. Budgets are all over the place, so it's definitely a period of change, which I personally find exciting. Mm-hmm. But it still is like, yeesh.
Yeah.
And then he also talks about the difference between when they're producing stuff that's a theatrical release versus Disney Plus. So he said a box office is super easy. 3 people come in, I know I can count the money exactly. If 3 people sit in the seat, I can count the money exactly. People subscribed and interested in Pixar. I'm sorry, I skipped way ahead here. With streaming, depending on how you divide it up, do you get more money to do something that's new or that attracts new viewers? It's very squirrely. So my thought on all this is that count on very little, if any, experimentation for Disney Plus, as they want. I think Disney is going to want something to keep people subscribed and interested, which is existing properties.
Oh, for sure.
But it's odd, though, because they talk about wanting to mirror Netflix, but so much love of Netflix or HBO. I'm still calling it HBO. It's not Max, the abbreviated Cinemax.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah, so HBO. But they lean towards this award-winning original content. So is Disney now kind of saying for Disney Plus it's going to be extensions of properties versus try to chase that massive hit and you can just rely on the solid stories that keep selling?
Yeah, because they're saving all their money because they're trying to buy Bluey, I bet.
It's never going to happen. Don't worry about
They're
it.
trying. They're going to buy Australia.
I told the whole country.
The government owns it.
Because I told you that, yeah, the government is part owner of it. Okay, so then the other piece that we have to talk about, and I know we're getting up there, but it's still good, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so shorts and Disney Plus. This is a little confusing for me. So And I think where I've landed is my last comment about where I said that Disney Plus is probably going to be existing properties versus new stuff. So in Bloomberg, Jim Morris says if we do more stuff for Disney Plus, sounds very non-committal. It should be it should be a series, and then that makes a clear demarcation between what we do for theaters and what we do for streaming. So in the layoff email that was sent from Jim Morris ahead of Inside Out 2's release in theaters, he said, I've spoken to you, this is to the employees, I've spoken to you many times over the last year about our pending move away from series production for Disney Plus, the return to our focus on feature films, and the reduction in our team that would accompany that. So it's like one article, he's like, if we do more stuff, it should be a series. And then in the layoff article, it says, I've spoken to you many times about our move away from series.
Maybe because they already have a series in the wings waiting to be released.
Yes, because they have two. This is bonkers to me. So Pixar in that same Bloomberg article.
I forgot about the other one.
It combines the two articles to get the whole picture here. Bloomberg, Pixar is also releasing a television series called Dream Productions, set in the Inside Out universe of Riley's Dreams, which will air next year. It leaves it at that. But the EW interviewer goes on and asks about the Bloomberg article, and Pete says, "Oh, we have it finished. It's coming out next spring." In the first film, remember, we go to Dream Productions to see how Riley's dreams are made. It semi-explains why they're so weird. We've continued the exploration of the power of dreams and how they affect us in our waking life as well. So maybe they're just saying because they've already got them done, they're moving away?
Yeah, exactly.
But I still think it's the fact that they're going to do... If a series gets green lit, it's going to be an extension of an existing property.
Of Toy Story,
I don't think they're doing anything new. But that, of course, leaves Win or Lose on the table, which do not get me started. It's been ready for more than a year, sitting there going, just waiting to breathe.
I'm excited about that one.
Stuck in a little can. So we can't say exactly when it's coming out, but people have said there's been rumors that it's going to come out late this year. So I would tend to agree, think late this year. It's 8 episodes about a middle school softball team. That's going to be, I think, a ton of fun. But that's probably it for originals.
Oh, for sure.
But you bring up Bluey. The Time magazine article asks Pete, so Disney Plus a Disney Plus announcement asking why the success of Bluey isn't driving Pixar looking to short form again. So it's kind of like basically saying Bluey's doing great with short form. Why are you saying Pixar isn't going to do great with short form? And Pete says, well, when they first announced Disney Plus, we immediately jumped on with a bunch of shorts. Turns out the audience didn't want short little things from Pixar, at least. It just didn't perform as well. Now
Bluey's also about the writing. Whoever those writers are.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's all about writing. It's
amazing.
It's Bandit and the writers.
I don't know anybody that hasn't seen it that's not like,
this is the best show.
Pretty fresh.
Yeah.
It feels fresh.
Yeah.
But that gave me a big old hold up, Petey, because Pixar popcorn, Pixar in real life weren't really great tests to say if people want stuff like that from
those
Pixar.
Weren't.
That was put forth in a fast way to get content onto Disney Plus. That wasn't a thing like Cars on the Road.
Yeah, or the shorty shorts.
You're right.
No.
Right. So, Forky Asks a Question was in there too. And I think the only...
I enjoyed those.
I think a lot of people did, but the only flaw is that I don't think anybody felt like they were leading to anything. Forky Asked a Question, it's just him being silly, and then it cut. It wasn't like Bluey that had like a storyline to it. This was just like a silly, fun escape in the world of Toy Story that focused on Forky.
Well, yeah, because Bluey has like oh my gosh, like it makes you think, it makes you cry as a grown-up, like...
Right. Existential stuff about parenting, about being a kid, about everything.
like deep things that happen, infertility, all this stuff, like loss of a parent, like so many things.
In like 6, 7, 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Every episode is like just a banger short.
It's incredible.
Yeah. But I also push back on that comment a little bit because Cars on the Road, of course, Disney Plus doesn't release their numbers directly. But in time, they have uploaded many, if not all of those episodes to YouTube. So guess who gets to see the stats? We do. Mm-hmm. So all episodes were uploaded to the Disney Junior channel, and they have 13 million views. Episodes 6 through 9, just as a sample, was uploaded to the official Pixar Cars channel, 7.3 million views. And just the Trucks song. How many views do you think that has? That was uploaded to Disney Music Vivo. That Trucks.
20 million?
69 million.
Wow.
There's an audience for short form
Especially
Pixar
Cars. And Cars is a great one.
Yeah. Works so well with shorts.
Yeah.
Because you can just do these little fun... I mean, the Toy Story tunes, that whole thing of Hawaiian Vacation, Partysaurus Rex.
Those were great.
All of those are...
Party Central.
They all fit into that. But that wasn't officially a Toy Story tune, was it?
That was a short.
Well, yeah, of course it wasn't a short.
I mean, but it
Toy
was
Story tune because it was Monsters. That's right. They were supposed to do a series of Monsters shorts. Because remember that one? It was like a MU or a Monsters short. They had a title card for it.
Oh, I don't remember.
Like they were doing for Toy Story tunes when it would drop in with the tunes. So I don't know. I just feel like it's now going to turn into that whole thing of, it's going to be repeat stuff for the others. Okay, I got one last thing. Do we have it in us? Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic. Pixar news. So I'm following, I don't have any big news story for this yet, but I'm following the Skydance purchase. They're trying to purchase Paramount, which originally, if you remember Skydance, where of course John Lasseter, Brad Bird, a bunch of other Pixarians have gone, Paramount is trying to sell off their portion of distribution. And of course there was originally before where Teddy Newton was going, I believe, was Paramount Animation. That never turned into a thing. But Skydance was with Apple TV for distribution when they released Luck. And then the Wandala series is still going to be on Apple TV Plus. But now they've moved to distribution with Netflix. So there's this whole thing of Skydance with their live action side produced Top Gun Maverick, which obviously did a billion plus. And so they're looking for something that I think if Skydance gets this, but it's a whole holdup with a parent company called like National Amusement and Sherry Redstone, the majority owner. It's been on and off for well over 2 months now. And Sony was going to buy it. Somebody else was going to buy it. It's a whole thing. But I'm watching that closely. And if anything does come of it, it could be a big deal. Because then Skydance could potentially distribute their own films under the Paramount name rather than having to partner and go non-theatrically through Netflix. So I'm wondering what that will be. The other piece of news that we have to throw in here, and it's going to be buried in here, so if you made it this far, fantastic and good for you because you're about to hear some really cool stuff. So Lewis Black, who voices Anger, of course, in Inside Out and Inside Out 2, on his podcast called The Rantcast, episode 178, 28 minutes and 41 seconds in, I think we actually get some answers as to what happened with Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling when it comes to Pixar's contract. Remember how we were like hearing they weren't going to come back and like people were like, oh man, how are you going to get somebody to replace Bill Hader as Fear and all this other stuff? And they said it's contract related, that he's not getting enough money. Well, Lewis Black stepped in with a direct quote.
Yes.
And he said, direct quote, the thing that's always with Pixar is that you don't get paid so much by Pixar. And part of it is because they're paying 1 billion people, of course, an exaggeration, to do the work that a lot of the work that normally an actor might have to do. So he's basically alluding to the fact that you have animators and all these people that have to create the characters and all these other things. When you pay an actor, you pay the actor. He provides the look, the voice, everything.
Right.
So he's saying in his case, he realizes that a lot of people are going to do that. And he said, Pixar, they say, you don't get the payment you should because what you do get is immortality. And after watching this one, meaning Inside Out 2, I do think that's what they've given. So he then goes on to talk about the impact of when people realize that he's the voice of anger. And he's got this, again, like a Billy Crystal, this long, storied, or Tom Hanks. Mm-hmm. They've got this long, storied, beautiful
career
catalog of work that they've done. Obviously from Lewis Black comedy on his own solos as part of, Comedy Central and Daily Show and all these other things. But you can hear the pride that people have that is something that they're recognized so much for. And it's very telling though at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it makes you be like, Bill Hader's probably like, I already got a legacy that I'm very happy with at SNL. Unless you want to pay me, I'm good. Mm-hmm. Which stinks.
Which stinks because he did a lot of voices. Like he was becoming like a Lucky Charm in a way.
Well, then they made that joke during D23.
Yeah.
That, he came out dressed as the cucumber or whatever at one point.
I don't remember, but he's done a lot of voices for them.
Yeah.
But I will say the new replacements for Fear and Disgust, I didn't hate them.
I didn't hate them. We can talk about this in our next episode, so we don't go too far off this road because I've already taken us down a lot of roads in these 2 hours. But I thought Disgust with Liza did a better job. Like I noticed almost zero difference.
I agree. Disgust I thought was perfection.
You could feel at moments that Fear was different.
Yes.
At moments.
But I didn't bother
hate
me.
it, but I didn't love it as much.
And I like them both. I like Bill and I like Tony.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, we're fans of both of them as actors and comedians and what they do. That is true. Going along those same lines as Lewis Black, though. So our friend Jace on on Instagram passed along a cool clip of Paul Walter Hauser, who voices Embarrassment. Mm-hmm. He was on the Ricky Glassman YouTube channel, which is it's like a sub-channel of the Take Your Shoes Off podcast, and he's the host, Rick Glassman, where he opens up. So Paul is sitting on the couch talking to Rick on the podcast. And while he's there, he literally they're kind of in a down moment and he pulls out his phone, opens an email, and he sees in that moment that he got the Embarrassment gig. And he's piecing it together as he's reading it. He's like, oh, I just got an audition. And then he's like, actually, I don't think this is an audition. I think, he goes, there's money quoted. They don't quote money if it's not. And he's like, you got to give me a minute. And he's really, truly getting emotional about it. It's in the episode. So if you just Google it,
That's cool.
Paul Walter Hauser books dream role during podcasts. So you can just do Paul Walter Hauser dream role and it'll come up on YouTube. It's kind of cool because you see this guy that was born in 86, like your brother.
Oh my gosh.
And he's getting this big, in his mind, this pivotal role. Now, granted, Embarrassment doesn't have a ton of lines.
No, he had one line.
But still, he still felt like, wow, I'm
still
part of the Pixar family.
Yeah, but he's a main character.
And he's sitting there it's got money attached to it. It's super cool, seeing it all kind of come to be.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I think we're going to hold off on any comments about Monsters at Work.
Yeah.
What I will say is that we're going to have to figure out what and when we talk about this because this show really grew up.
Oh, man. Season 2.
It was good.
Chef's kiss. It was good.
Kiss.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. Really solid. Really stepped it
Really
up in
fun.
terms of the maturity level of it.
Yeah.
The fact that it has real stakes in terms of, it's exactly what you expect. If you watch season 1 of Seinfeld, Friends, any even newer shows, Silicon Valley, you're meeting the characters, the world, you've got all this setup. Mm-hmm. And then where do you take it from there? But now what they've done with Tyler is really cool. So we got to figure out.
Now, granted, that's Disney, not Pixar.
Yes, but we still talk about it because Billy Crystal and John Goodman still voice characters in it, and it's based on a ton of the characters from the original Monsters film, including some of those new rigs feel like they were Pixar rigs as well. So we feel like we still have to do that show some justice because of how much detail we went into. I mean, we got to talk to Bob Sganaway, the show creator, in a 2-parter interview that we did with him. We had some of the other artists and directors that have gave us some awesome artwork, custom artwork. I mean, we really owe this show its due timing to get everything out, but it's so hard because of how it was released. We've got some thoughts there, but I think we should leave it there for now and come back to Monsters at Work so that way it's not buried at the end of this one. What do you think?
I agree.
Okay. So our next one, we're going to figure out how and when we need to do this, but very quickly we need to do this Inside Out 2 review. But I think that wraps up this episode of the Pixar Post podcast. So be sure to follow us on all of our social media channels, subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcast, and lastly, if you like today's show, let us know. We went on for a long time on this one. So if you listen to this and you're still here, thank you so much. But rate us on Apple Podcasts, leave us a comment on our site, send us an email, info@pixarpost.com, and signing off as usual, I'm TJ.
And I'm Julie.
And be sure to stay tuned to pixarpost.com all week for the latest Pixar news. Bye.
Bye.